You know, it's pretty funny. I was trying to write up a new Simpsons and Me video, 201 Greyhounds, and I ran into a bit of a problem. I had previously expressed interest in doing some episodes that I have a negative opinion on, but in doing so I discovered that a lot of my issues with 201 Greyhounds are actually more applicable to Season 6 as a whole than the episode itself, and that I would probably be better off using my time to do a whole video explaining why I have issues with Season 6. So I went and started writing that up, and while writing that Season 6 video up, I ended up discovering that Bart of Darkness is a top tier episode of Season 6, and that it sticks out in the lineup for Season 6 because in actuality it was produced as part of Season 5. So by solving one problem with my writing, I ended up creating another problem, so I figured I may as well just get Bart of Darkness out of the way super quick. Bart of Darkness is by far my favorite summer-related episode, and honestly, Simpsons has a pretty solid track record when it comes to summer-related episodes. Like Camp Krusty, great episode. Summer 4'2", great episode. But it's kind of weird because looking at the Simpsons wiki, there's a lot of episodes that are classified as, quote, summer episodes that don't really have the same end of the school year framing as Bart of Darkness does or that Camp Krusty does. In fact, Bart of Darkness isn't even the only summer episode in Season 6. Like, you can count Itchy and Scratchy Land, and the Simpsons wiki counts Bart vs. Australia as one too. But, you know, let's not get caught up in this, let's get to the episode. I honestly think this is one of the most iconic episodes of The Simpsons. It's one I remember seeing a lot, it's one I remember quoting a lot, and it's one that to this day still pops into my mind relatively often. From the start, it's very relatable. Like, we've all been there. It's summer. It's hot. You don't have air conditioning because you're poor and you're trying to keep cool. Personally, my solution to overheating is to take ice baths. The whole bit with the fridge was actually something writer Dan McGrath did as a kid, and many of the other heat-related gags are based on experiences the writers had living in California and in other places.
I'm all out of ice cream! It's true, you know.
Oh.
Chili! Red hot Texas style chili! And we got ginger ale! Boiling hot Texas style ginger ale!
That's actually a really smart and layered joke because, like, have you ever had ginger ale on, like, a hot day? It's so unsatisfying. Like, you really shouldn't be drinking pop on a hot day anyway, but, like, ginger ale especially is, like, not good for the summer. They honestly didn't even have to add the boiling hot Texas-style ginger ale because I get the joke as it is, but it's appreciated nonetheless. It's a simple premise. To beat the heat, Bart and Lisa go for a swim in the Springfield Poolmobile, and this idea is actually something I wished was real as a kid. Soon after, though, they learn that the Poolmobile is only a one-day-a-summer thing.
Oh well, same time tomorrow, Otto?
No way, man. One day of summer is all we're budgeted for. I guess it is kind of a tease.
So they try to pull out some old tricks to get Homer to buy them a pool.
Now before you respond, you must understand that your refusal would result in months and months of... Can we have a pool, Dad? 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 Can we...
I understand.
Calling back to the Mount Splashmore episode. And when they finally get a pool, we get a nice reference to, I think it was Witness or whatever that Harrison Ford movie was, I can't remember, but this is great too.
Alright, everybody in the pool!
'Tis a fine barn, but sure 'tis no pool, English.
Do it!
The fact that the Amish guy is just there, like, it's perfect timing. This is very, like, surreal, but it's great nonetheless. And the Simpsons finally have a pool. It gets this premise so right. Like, as soon as the pool is done, all the neighborhood kids just want to swim in it.
Hello, Mrs. Bart. Is your pool ready yet?
All of a sudden, everyone is Bart or Lisa's best friend, and the place becomes a summer hangout, boosting the popularity of both the kids. For some reason, the part where all the kids think that the random kid eating a sandwich on the counter is Bart is really funny to me, and I think it's more so because of the last kid in the line.
Hello, Mrs. Cumberdale.
Get a load of this kid. And tell me you've never done this as a kid. Like, some kid in the neighborhood has something that you're fully willing to pretend to be that kid's friend in order to use. This can be done with pools, video games, trampolines, and even like when you get a little bit older, a house with no parental supervision is like a big one. I hung around this one fucked up kid for a whole summer because his mom didn't care if we drank or smoked inside. Bart of Darkness has a great premise, but what really makes the episode stand out is the fact that it is just jam-packed with comedy. From Bart falling off the treehouse and breaking his leg because of Nelson.
Hey, Bart! Your epidermis is showing!
It is?
to Homer swimming in the pool without putting chlorine in the water. It's wall-to-wall hilarity, and it's the perfect episode to open up a season. It does kind of slow down a little bit once Bart gets hurt. It really revels in showing how he's missing the summer and is becoming isolated from everyone because he can't swim with a cast on. The part where he's trying to get people to sign his cast is like, this stuck in my head for a while because I broke my arm when I was like 10 years old, and I made it my business to have somebody, which was my dad, write Millpool on my cast. In the meantime, while Bart is a social outcast, Lisa starts being treated like Miss Popularity. Once again, referring to just how much of an impact this episode had on me. Like, the part where Bart is locked in his room with his broken leg was heavily referenced among my friend group in the summer of what I want to say 2008, 2009. Can't remember the exact year, when my friend Adam broke his leg and missed most of the summer. I think he started to get a little bit fed up with me constantly asking if he was playing Stratego by himself, but this whole plot is extremely memorable and I dare say iconic. Midway through the episode, we get a Rear Window parody, when Lisa, hoping to help Bart during his isolation, gives him a telescope, and Bart immediately begins spying on the residents of Springfield. He even sees Jimmy Stewart.
Grace, come here. There's a sinister-looking kid I want you to see.
Oh.
But through his, let's just say voyeurism, he sees Flanders in a rather crazy predicament. I find the early part of the classic era found itself using pop culture as a template for a lot of episodes' plot lines, from Treehouse of Horror episodes just being straight-up Twilight Zone remakes, to episodes that are just not Treehouse of Horror episodes borrowing heavily from the plot of a movie. And I absolutely love that they decided to just go with a Hitchcock parody in the second act of this episode, where Bart thinks Flanders killed Maude. They build up on it, and while you likely don't expect the conclusion to be that Flanders killed his wife for the first time viewing it, it did leave you guessing as to what the conclusion was going to be. And on the sidelines, Martin, who was pretty much humiliated at the beginning of the episode by having all of his bathing suits taken, manages to outdo Lisa by getting an even bigger pool in his bid to become the Queen of Summertime.
Soon I'll be Queen of Summertime. Oh, King!
And everyone immediately ditches out on Lisa to go hang out at Martin, who has a better pool, causing her friends and her popularity to leave her behind. Bart's suspicion over Flanders killing his wife starts to reach a boiling point, and due to his broken leg, he can't really investigate it himself, so he guilt/pressures/forces Lisa to listen to his terrible play in order to force her to break into Flanders' house.
Kippers for breakfast, Aunt Helga. Is it St. Swithin's Day already? 'Tis, replied Aunt Helga. I'm going.
And we get a pretty tense scene with one of my favorite screw the audience jokes.
A human head. Of course.
Like, bro, you have no idea how funny I find that, because it's just so fucking stupid. And it's like, why would it be labeled as a human head if, oh god. As a horror fan, this whole bit just makes me giddy, but as a Simpsons fan, it has some of the funniest moments in the show's history. I remember watching this episode with my mom, and her just dying over the 911 call, and that is actually, like, probably one of the funniest gags in the episode.
You are being murdered or are calling from a rotary phone. Please stay on the line. You have selected Regicide. If you know the name of the king or queen being murdered, press 1.
I gotta give a shout out to Robin for pointing this out to me, that this is like a clear-cut parody of Movie Phone, which was like a service back in the day where you could like call an 800 number and get like showtimes at the theaters or whatever, and it's like, yeah, that's exactly what they were doing here. I never used Movie Phone. It wasn't really a thing when I was like seeing movies, and like when my parents were seeing movies, we just got the paper like normal fucking people. I find it comically over the top that when Bart goes to rescue Lisa, it's just like one inconvenience after the other, to the point where he has like several different things stuck to his cast by the time he gets to Flanders' house. And while I said you didn't think Flanders like wasted Maude even when you first saw this episode, they really do try to play up the fact that Flanders might be a killer. Flanders menacingly singing Mary Had a Little Lamb is legitimately unsettling if you put yourself in Lisa's shoes, where she truly thinks that Flanders might be a killer. But then of course it all turns out to be a misunderstanding, as Flanders just killed Maude's plant while she was away at Bible camp.
But I heard a woman scream.
Huh? Well, now that I can't explain.
Found it, Chief.
And in one final bit of comeuppance, Martin's summertime popularity is cut short when he overloads the pool and it breaks, ending on Martin singing Frank Sinatra's Summer Wind as the camera holds on him naked on the remains of what used to be his pool. I fucking absolutely love this episode. It is such a strong entry in an otherwise mediocre season. It's funny, it has a solid story, and it's relatable, but it also still isn't afraid to be outrageous as shit. It has a collection of some of the most memorable gags in the series, and some absolutely great storyboarding, and it makes the most of the summer setting. But there's an interesting piece of trivia about this episode. I previously mentioned that it was a perfect season opener, but I also mentioned that it was a holdover from season 5. And looking back at the episode, knowing that it was actually the final produced episode of season 5 and was intended to be the season finale really puts it even more into perspective in terms of how it's presented. This episode truly does feel like a season finale episode. It takes place in the early summer, which is typically when a season of The Simpsons would end, and there's something about the shot of Martin singing Summer Wind that feels like a season closer shot. The episode that followed this episode, Lisa's Rival, was also a holdover episode, but that was a holdover from the middle of season 5, so it kind of creeps in a little easier. Bart of Darkness not only feels like a season closer, but in a way it feels like the end of an era for the show. Seasons 3, 4, and 5 are all a little bit different from each other, but share common themes and a common sense of humor, especially when comparing 4 and 5. But the differences between season 5 and 6 are like night and day. Despite both having David Merkin as showrunner, who had a very specific way of doing his episodes, these two seasons feel so different from one another, and it's kind of jarring when you look at it. And what's more is season 6 kind of started the show on the path that it would take as it came out of its peak following season 8. Season 6 started to really revel in the wacky adventure episode, and as a result, there was a lot more wacky, gimmicky storylines. And that's not to say that season 5, didn't have its share of gimmicky episodes, but it still felt grounded to a degree. They were able to make these wacky adventures and wacky situations in season 5 seem normal. They played it straight for the most part. And it still felt like the show that it was a couple years prior. 6 is when it started really heavily banking on stuff like guest stars and themed episodes, travel episodes, etc. So that shot of Martin singing Summer Wind is pretty funny, but it also kind of feels like it's a send-off to the true golden years of the show, as it would undergo a massive change moving forward. It's like a final farewell to what I think is the peak of the show as Martin looks towards the future. And this is all me just giving my opinion on how I feel watching the scene. Obviously none of this is intentional and this is just my interpretation, but Bart of Darkness to me feels like a farewell to the more conventional format that The Simpsons had going in its golden classic years. We're just splitting up the classic years now at this point, as it would move into the later classic years. Considering the amount of callbacks to previous episodes, both directly and indirectly and thematically, I might not be that far off with my assessment here, but nevertheless, in a sense, it makes the episode, as well as the shot of Martin singing, kind of somber, but that's just me looking into it a bit much, I guess. If I had to rate Bart of Darkness, I think I would just have to go ahead and give it a 10 out of 10, and that's not because of all the shit that I just came up with at the end. Like, sure, it does feel like an end of an era episode to me, but it's also a damn good episode with solid jokes, character moments, and one of the best stories ever written in the show's history. It has all the things it needs to be considered a perfect episode in my opinion, whether or not you look at it as the end of an era.
Oh, I see. Then everything is wrapped up in a neat little package.
So what are your thoughts on Bart of Darkness? Do you see what I see with it feeling like a finale, with it feeling like a send-off to that era of The Simpsons? Let me know in the comments, and if you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell icon if you want to know when I'm uploading new videos. And I will see you next time.
Oh no! That sinister-looking kid is coming to kill me! Help! Help! Help!
The summer wind came blowing in from across the sea.